The AFK farming software, I became invincible without knowing it. Chapter 101, Taking First Place. Other than Qi Ming, there were also many legacy disciples whose combat performance was not bad. He was not the first legacy disciple to enter the third round of the puppet screening. As everyone expected, 3 late-stage nascent soul realm ogre puppets appeared in the third round. Their bodies reached a height of 9 meters. They were like 3 huge giants that were very powerful and oppressive. Such a lineup of 3 late-stage nascent soul realm ogre puppets was already very powerful. It was basically impossible to pass without reaching the nascent soul realm. Weaker cultivators could not win against them. Frost Crystal Maiden. Buzz. Qi Ming waved his right hand and the Frost Crystal Maiden appeared. Huo Chongqing was not summoned. Because Huo Chongqing was a human, if the elders of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect saw Qi Ming using a human as his spirit pet, they would probably attract trouble. Only the demonic path would use humans as spirit pets. In the past, although Huo Chongqing had also shown himself and even helped Qi Ming buy a large number of spiritual herbs and sell various resources and medicinal pills, no one knew that Huo Chongqing was Qi Ming's spirit pet. Cold air spread as the surrounding temperature fell drastically. Frost appeared. Dark Dragon King. Roar. Qi Ming waved his hand again. The early stage nascent soul realm Black Dragon King was summoned. Of the 3 spirit pets, 2 had reached the late stage nascent soul realm, and 1 had reached the early stage nascent soul realm. This. Could it be that Qi Ming has also cultivated as a beast tamer? 3 spirit pets. Impressive. This is too awesome. Everyone could not help but exclaim. Attack! Qi Ming shouted. Roar! 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 Rumble! The battle erupted instantly. Qi Ming's spirit pets were very powerful. Even if the Black Dragon King was only at the early stage nascent soul realm, their enemy was a rigid puppet and not a true nascent soul expert. This battle was one-sided. Boom! First, the Frost Crystal Maiden attacked and froze the 3 puppets with the Ice World. The Black Dragon King and the Dawn Dark Bat Demon attacked and crippled the puppets. After the ogre puppets recovered, they immediately counterattacked and accumulated energy. Roar! However, the Black Dragon King's Dark Dragon Breath enveloped him first. The Dawn Dark Bat Demon transformed the power of dawn and dusk into a huge energy ball that smashed over. Finally, the Frost Crystal Maiden had obtained a divine power spell technique when she advanced to the nascent soul realm. It was called Frozen Space. This move already involved the power of space. Crack! Crack! There were repeated explosions. The 3 ogre puppets were all ruined. Done. Qi Ming clapped his hands. He passed the puppet screening test perfectly. From the beginning to the end, he did not attack. He easily passed this screening test by relying on 3 spirit pets. Moreover, he was the first legacy disciple to pass the puppet screening. First, the puppet remains were all teleported away. It should have been sent for recycling. Immediately after, directly ahead, light condensed. A diamond-shaped token appeared. It was engraved with the phenomenon of the green cloud peak. It turned into a stream of light and landed in Qi Ming's hand. It turned into a mark and appeared on the back of his left hand. This was the legacy token of this legacy competition. With this legacy token, the Heaven Enlightenment Sect could find Qi Ming's location at any time. They could also broadcast Qi Ming's situation in real time so that the elders of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect could see. Of course, this could also guarantee Qi Ming's safety. Then, another exquisite jade box landed. Qi Ming raised his hand and the jade box flew into his hand. He opened it. This was a heaven and earth spiritual object. It was called a 10,000-year nascent soul spirit. This heaven and earth spiritual object could help a late-stage core formation realm cultivator's core break into the nascent soul realm. It could increase the probability of success and also increase the quality of the nascent soul. This was the reward for Qi Ming being the first to pass the puppet screening. 10,000-year nascent soul spirit. Qi Ming smiled. He was quite satisfied with this reward. He put the 10,000-year nascent soul spirit into his inventory. In the eyes of outsiders, Qi Ming put it in his storage bag. Buzz. The next moment, a green light flashed. Qi Ming was teleported out and returned to the square of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect's legacy competition. Qi Ming looked around and saw that he was alone. Immediately after, a green light soared into the sky. A ranking list appeared. On it, Qi Ming's name was ranked first. This meant that he was the first legacy disciple to pass the puppet screening. He immediately attracted everyone's attention. I'm actually the first to clear it. Qi Ming did not expect this. In order to clear the level slower, Qi Ming specially let the spirit pets attack. From the beginning to the end, he did not attack. However, even so, he still obtained first. That's why I'm not too strong, but the legacy disciples of these 12 peaks are too weak. Qi Ming shrugged. He could only think so. First place. Junior brother obtained first place. That's great. Lu Qingjian was surprised and delighted. Moreover, junior brother has actually nurtured 3 spirit pets that have reached the nascent soul realm. He passed the 3 assessments smoothly and obtained first place. Ha ha ha. Feng Zimo was also stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted and laughed repeatedly. Well done. As expected of the disciple I think the most highly of. He easily obtained first place in the puppet test. What's there to be proud of? He's only relying on spirit pets. That's right. It's only a puppet screening. So what if he takes first place? It's not a true legacy competition. It's still early. Yes, yes. In the surroundings, the legacy elders of the other peaks said eccentrically. This Qi Ming Yang Li wondered, when did he nurture spirit pets? Deist Azure Dragon and the others did not know how to answer. They did not know either. King Ian, are you confident? Yang Li asked. Yes. So King Ian lowered her head and replied weakly. However, she was thinking about Qi Ming's battle scene in her heart, making her a little nervous and uncertain. During this puppet screening, Qi Ming did not attack at all, his spirit pets did everything. So King Ian could not determine Qi Ming's true strength, but faced with her master's question, she could only brace herself and answer. However, for some reason, So King Ian felt that she could not defeat Qi Ming at all. It was like an instinctive warning. First place in the puppet screening. Buzz. Deist Azure Dragon controlled the Azure Dragon to announce the result, and his voice entered the ears of everyone present. Green Cloud Peak's legacy disciple, Qi Ming. You have obtained the reward and qualifications. Qi Ming. Qi Ming. Qi Ming. At this moment, in the Green Cloud Floating Palace, there were elders shouting Qi Ming's name. More and more of them appeared. Although they looked very childish, they were actually cheering for Qi Ming. Damn it! In the surroundings, the expressions of the elders and peak masters of the other peaks were a little ugly. Swish! Swish! In the square, the second and third place were only separated by half a second. I'm first! I'm first! After they came out, they saw each other and could not help but argue. Cough cough! At this moment, Qi Ming coughed lightly, attracting the attention of the two of them. The two of you, look up. There's a ranking on this. Where's the ranking list? First place, Green Cloud Peak's legacy disciple, Qi Ming. The pupils of the two legacy disciples constricted. Their gazes landed on Qi Ming at the same time, and their gazes carried deep meaning. They sized him up a few times and said in a low voice, Qi Ming? That's you. Qi Ming smiled and nodded, don't be surprised. It's indeed me. On the rankings, in second place was the legacy disciple of the numinous Sky Peak, Dong Yuan. Third was the legacy disciple of Ethereal Peak, Chu Wenqi. You are Qi Ming, the one who has mastered the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture. Dong Yuan examined Qi Ming as if he wanted to see any flaws in him. I've indeed underestimated you. I originally thought that you had just become a legacy disciple for too short a period of time and that your cultivation level would not be too strong, so even if you master the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture, you won't be a threat. Now it seems, you're a huge threat. I was arguing with Dong Yuan about first place just now. Chu Wenqi had already recovered his calm. He said indifferently, I didn't expect that the first place had long been taken by you, Qi Ming. We have made a fool out of ourselves. In that case, then let's fight in the true legacy competition. I'll be waiting. Qi Ming shrugged. On the square, the conversation of Qi Ming, Dong Yuan, and Chu Wenqi fell into the ears of everyone present. Everyone present basically saw and heard it. Numinous sky floating hall, green cloud floating hall, ethereal floating hall. In the three floating palaces, the three peak masters looked at each other. Although he did not say a word, there was a faint smell of conflict. Swoosh! 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 Not long after, legacy disciples were teleported out. On the rankings, the top 10 were all listed. The fourth legacy disciple of the Golden Root Peak, Wei Wenbao. The fifth legacy disciple of the Immortal Progression Peak, Lin Xianer. The sixth legacy disciple of the Hidden Sword Peak, Ma Shalun. The seventh legacy disciple of the Jade Luster Peak, Zhan Menjiun. The eighth legacy disciple of the Nine Extreme Peak, Tian Feng. The ninth legacy disciple of the Heavenly Peak, Guo Zixin. The 10th legacy disciple of the Smelting Divine Peak, Cheng Zhixuan. No legacy disciples from the Tyrant Saber Peak and Martial Illumination Peak entered the top 10 in the first round of the puppet screening. Time passed. An hour later, the puppet screening ended. 218 legacy disciples failed to clear the first round of the puppet screening. Most of these legacy disciples were at the late-stage core formation realm and had not reached the nascent soul realm. In the third round, they could not defeat the three late-stage nascent soul realm puppets and could only fail. 1012 legacy disciples passed the screening. Junior brother, you actually passed. Fan Zhong was very shocked. When he raised his head and saw Qi Ming, who was ranked first on the list, he was even more shocked. It could be said that he was shocked. First place. You're the first to pass the puppet screening. Gasp. Fan Zhong could not help but gasp. Junior brother key cultivation level is at the late stage core formation realm. Not only did he pass the screening, but he also obtained first place. This is simply a miracle. Wu Changchun did not know how to describe it for a moment. He could only describe it as a miracle. It could be seen how surprised he was at this moment. Chapter 102, Ancient Grotto-heaven, Dao-seeking Sect. Qi Ming was actually quite speechless. What was a miracle? He called it a miracle just because he obtained first place in the puppet screening test? This was too exaggerated. Damn! He did not plan to pursue such a small matter. Congratulations, junior brother Qi. Tang Binshun's gaze was complicated. He originally thought that Qi Ming's cultivation level was too low and was only at the late-stage core formation realm. He should be like Fan Zhong, unable to pass the puppet screening. Unexpectedly, Qi Ming's performance in the puppet screening was extremely outstanding, and it even exceeded everyone's expectations. Not only did he pass the screening, but he also directly obtained first. Speaking of which, Tang Binshun's performance was very ordinary. He was only 58th on the rankings and was still very far from the top 10, much less compared to Qi Ming. The difference was huge. In the green cloud floating palace. I was wrong. I was really wrong. Feng Zimu sighed again. I originally thought that Tang Binshun would stand out in this legacy competition, and Qi Ming might not even be able to pass the first round of screening. The truth shocked me. Qi Ming's performance was too unexpected. Indeed. Qi Xiao nodded and said in deep thought, although this Qi Ming has only been a legacy disciple for a short period of time, his talent is truly shocking. There's nothing to say about his performance this time. Ha ha ha. Miao Hongjian directly laughed loudly and said, as expected of a legacy disciple that I took a fancy to. He's indeed extraordinary. A super genius who can master the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture is naturally not to be underestimated with common sense. With Qi Ming around, our Green Cloud Peak will definitely become famous in this legacy competition. At that time, the resources of the sect will definitely lean towards our Green Cloud Peak. Good, this is good. Yes, yes. Peak Master is right. Yu Jin, Elder Wang, and the other legacy elders nodded repeatedly. In the square of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect's legacy competition palace. All the legacy disciples who did not pass the puppet screening, come over. Deist Azure Dragon said. Yes. Yes. The 218 legacy disciples stood together under Deist Azure Dragon's instructions. Then I'll leave first. Fan Zhong waved at Qi Ming and the others, feeling a little regretful. I didn't expect that I wouldn't even be able to pass the first round of the puppet screening. It's really a pity. Go back. Tang Bin said casually, this might be a good thing for you. That's right. Zhang Pin Liang nodded. This legacy competition is clearly different from the past. The first round of puppet screening is obviously to eliminate legacy disciples with insufficient strength and cultivation. Zhao Fifei said in a low voice. Teleport. Buzz. Buzz. A gorgeous green light pillar flew out from the Azure Dragon's body and enveloped the 218 legacy disciples before teleporting them away. Swish. Swish. The next moment, these legacy disciples were teleported to the surrounding 12 floating palaces. Fan Zhong arrived at the Green Cloud Floating Palace. Master. Fan Zhong returned to his senses and saw Feng Zimu. He immediately bowed. I'm not strong enough to pass the puppet screening. I've embarrassed you. Feng Zimu nodded and said, you have to remember this lesson. In the future, you have to stop being anxious and cultivate well. Continue working hard in the next legacy competition. Yes. Fan Zhong nodded solemnly. In the surroundings, the legacy disciples who had been eliminated all apologized to their masters, but they basically did not really blame them. They only encouraged them verbally. After the 218 eliminated legacy disciples were teleported away, the official legacy competition was about to begin. The legacy disciples were also waiting quietly. In addition, out of the 74 legacy disciples of the Green Cloud Peak, 13 had been eliminated. There were 61 remaining, and all of them had reached the nascent soul realm. All the legacy disciples who passed the puppet screening had cultivation levels above the early stage nascent soul realm. There was only one exception, and that was Qi Ming. Jin Lin's beautiful eyes sized up Qi Ming repeatedly with a strange gaze as she said, Junior brother Qi, I didn't expect you to hide so deeply. It's really unexpected. To be honest, after we saw the rankings, we were already shocked and could not calm down for a long time. Junior brother Qi outstanding performance made us senior brothers and senior sisters dumbfounded. This way, our Green Cloud Peak will also benefit. The legacy disciples of the Green Cloud Peak said one after another. Everyone, you're welcome. Qi Ming cupped his hands and said, I was just lucky. There's no such thing as luck in this world. Luo Qishan glanced at Qi Ming. He was the eldest disciple of the Green Cloud Peak's legacy disciples. Apart from Qi Ming, the person ranked the highest was 28th on the ranking. He was the eldest disciple of the Green Cloud Peak's legacy elder, Deist Golden Toad. His cultivation level had naturally reached the late-stage nascent soul realm. To be able to obtain the first place, he naturally has his outstanding points. Junior brother Qi, being overly humble is being conceited. Senior brother, you're right. Qi Ming smiled. Silence. Boom! The azure dragon roared as a dragon roar sounded. A faint dragon might shook the entire place. Its dragon eyes swept across all the legacy disciples present. Next, the true content and rules of this legacy competition will be announced. Listen carefully. Everyone was silent. It was not only the legacy disciples on the square. Even the elders and peak masters in the surrounding 12 floating palaces looked over and listened carefully to Deist Azure Dragon's next words. Honestly, everyone was curious about the situation of this legacy competition. The various performances and rules from before could be said to have whetted everyone's appetite. 38 years ago. Deist Azure Dragon said in a low voice, at the border between the southern region and the eastern region, there was an unexpected change. The Chong River, which is thousands of miles long, dried up overnight. Moreover, even the demon beasts and demons living in the Chong River have disappeared. Therefore, Patriarch Huiyan and I headed to the Chong River to investigate the truth. After spending 3 years, we discovered a gap in the ancient Grotto-heaven at the bottom of the Chong River. The entire Chong River, along with the demon beasts and demons living in it, was sucked into this ancient Grotto-heaven. That's why the scene back then appeared. When we tried to enter this ancient Grotto-heaven, we discovered a very strong restriction. Cultivators whose cultivation levels exceeded the nascent soul realm could not enter. We can't force our way in. But Patriarch Huiyan and I used our essence soul divine sense to probe inside and discovered that this ancient Grotto-heaven is filled with spiritual chi and spiritual herbs. It's even more likely that there's an ancient inheritance. However, it's also filled with danger. If we're not careful, we'll die in this ancient Grotto-heaven. There was an uproar. Ancient Grotto-heaven. This legacy competition is actually related to an ancient Grotto-heaven. This is really unexpected. If I remember correctly, the last time the ancient Grotto-heaven appeared was 3,000 years ago. At that time, it appeared in the northern region. Our southern region could not interfere at all. Yes, yes. I've heard that the ancient Grotto-heaven that appeared in the north region 3,000 years ago is called the Water Moon Grotto-heaven. It has an ancient inheritance and even a true immortal artifact has appeared. I wonder what the situation is this time. Most importantly, the appearance of the ancient Grotto-heaven probably won't hide the news for long. Forget about the other sects and families. The Spring-Autumn sect, the 10,000 Buddha temple, and the myriad demon cave will definitely interfere. No wonder they said that this legacy competition is dangerous. Have you forgotten what Elder Azure Dragon said just now? The ancient Grotto-heaven has appeared at the border of the southern region and the eastern region. Do you think the eastern region will not react? That's true. I feel that this time, all kinds of monsters will appear. The elders of the 12 peaks discussed. It was very lively. Ancient Grotto-heaven. Qi Ming pondered for a moment. My golden core Great Dao scripture is already approaching perfection. I'm almost at the end of my golden core Great Dao. If I want to continue improving, I need my core to break into the nascent soul realm. However, if the Connate Purity Great Dao golden core wants to break into the nascent soul realm, it will be extremely difficult. It's almost impossible. With the Heaven Enlightenment Sect's nascent soul formation method, it's impossible to shatter the Connate Purity Great Dao golden core at all. Now that the ancient Grotto-heaven has appeared, if there really is an ancient inheritance inside, there might be an extraordinary nascent soul realm cultivation method. I can search for it when the time comes. If there's really no choice, I can only place my hope in the game dungeon. For example, the Foundation Establishment Realms Dao Foundation was divided into the Human Dao Foundation, the Earth Dao Foundation, and the Heavenly Dao Foundation. The core formation realm was divided into the False Core, True Core, and Golden Core. Similarly, at the Nascent Soul realm, according to the Dao Foundation that a cultivator had established and the level of the core that they had condensed, as well as the Nascent Soul realm cultivation method, the nascent soul that they cultivated would also be different. From low to high, they were divided into false nascent, true nascent, and Dao nascent. A total of 3 levels. Back then, Shi Zhaoyuan, who Yuan Feng had cursed with the nail-head 7 arrows, could only be considered a false nascent soul. This was because Shi Zhaoyuan had taken over and cultivated again. His aptitude had already decreased, and he had also cultivated to the nascent soul realm in 300 years. His foundation was naturally unstable, and he could only cultivate the false nascent soul. Of course, if Shi Zhaoyuan really succeeded and completely absorbed the hornless dragon essence to transform his body, he might even be able to reconstruct his foundation and cultivate the true nascent soul. Unfortunately, Shi Zhaoyuan was already dead, so all his plans were for nothing. After Patriarch Wuyan and I sent this matter to the sect, we originally planned to seal the matter of the ancient Grotto-heaven in secret and let our Heaven Enlightenment sect slowly digest it. Daoist Azure Dragon continued, unfortunately, the Dao-seeking sect of the eastern region is also secretly investigating the Chang River incident. They have also discovered the gap in the ancient Grotto-heaven. The ancient Grotto-heaven is important. We originally wanted to fight over it, but we did not end up doing so. This is because if we fought, it would cause too much commotion and attract too much attention. Therefore, after a careful and serious discussion between the Heaven Enlightenment sect and the Dao-seeking sect, we've decided to explore the ancient Grotto-heaven together. Our Heaven Enlightenment sect will send out legacy disciples of the 12 peaks. The Dao-seeking sect will also send out legacy disciples of their sect. You will definitely encounter the legacy disciples of the Dao-seeking sect in the ancient Grotto-heaven. As for how to deal with them, you can decide yourselves. Chapter 103, Mystic World. Daoist Azure Dragon continued to talk about the ancient Grotto-heaven and the Dao-seeking sect. Qi Ming also listened carefully. He gradually had an outline and understanding of the Dao-seeking sect of the eastern region. Qi Ming had not specially inquired about the situation in this cultivation world over the years, but under the influence of others, he still had the most basic understanding. First, this cultivation world was called the mystic world. In the mystic world, demons, devils, immortals, gods, humans, and ghosts existed together. It was divided into the regions of eastern, southern, western, and northern. Moreover, there was also the central region. As for other more secret matters, Qi Ming did not know for the time being. In addition, the rules of this legacy competition were relatively relaxed. There were no absolute restrictions, but there was only one thing. They were not allowed to kill each other among their fellow disciples. If they were discovered, they would directly cripple their cultivation and be expelled from the sect. They could fight. However, they could not kill each other. The duration of the legacy competition was not specified. The sect master and the 3 grand elders could decide when it should end. At that time, the grand elders would determine according to the exact performance whether any legacy disciples were qualified to enter the Heaven Enlightenment Immortal Mountain in this legacy competition. Buzz. At this moment, after the Azure Dragon announced the exact content and rules of the legacy competition, it transformed into a green stream of light and disappeared into thin air. Subsequently, 4 figures floated out of the palace of the Heaven Enlightenment sect's legacy competition. We welcome the sect master and the 3 grand elders. We welcome sect master. In the surrounding 12 floating palaces, all the elders, legacy elders, and the 12 peak masters present stood up and bowed to the 4 figures. Of course, Qi Ming and the others also bowed respectfully. Yang Li nodded slightly. There was no joy or anger in his calm expression. Grand elders, I'll have to trouble you to open the spatial passageway next. No trouble. Sect master, you're being too serious. This is what we should do. Daoist Azure Dragon, Patriarch Wuyan, and Daoist Purple Firmament cupped their hands. Activate. The next moment, they acted and formed hand seals. Spatial seals appeared and spread forward, easily tearing apart space. A spatial passageway 10 meters in diameter appeared. It was extremely stable and had an ancient grey luster. It was like a vortex. Sect Master. Deist Azure Dragon said, the spatial passageway has been established. Okay. Yang Li nodded in satisfaction. King Ian. Yang Li said. Master. At this moment, So King Ian flew over from the back. It had been nearly 10 years since they last met, and So King Ian looked a little older. At the very least, she did not look like she had at first. Her body had already grown, and she had an oval face and cherry lips. Her skin was fair, and her aura was even more extraordinary. She was like a little fairy who had just entered the world. She had an otherworldly aura. Yang Li said, King Ian, you're my personal disciple. You've only been in the sect for a short period of time. Today, you'll be the first to enter the spatial passageway and lead the way for the fellow disciples of the Heaven Enlightenment sect. Go. Yang Li waved his hand. Ah! So King Ian was stunned, and her rosy lips opened slightly. Honestly, she did not expect her master to let her take the lead. She was a little stunned. She felt that her master had really tricked her. This ancient Grotto-heaven did not sound good. Moreover, people from the Dao-seeking sect would come. It was very dangerous. This. She was a little flustered. Is she the personal disciple that the sect master took in 10 years ago? She's quite beautiful and has a good aura. Lord Sect Master wants her to be the vanguard. Is he grooming her? As the sect master's personal disciple, according to her status, she indeed has the right to lead us. I'm just afraid that she doesn't have the ability. Logically speaking, the sect master's personal disciple should not need to participate in this legacy competition, right? Does sect master want her to prove herself in this legacy competition? Everyone discussed animatedly. Hurry up and go. Yang Li frowned. So King Ian took a deep breath, and the nervousness in her heart had gradually calmed down. Even if everyone's gazes were focused on her, she gradually calmed down. Nervous? Nervous? Panicking? All kinds of negative emotions had already been abandoned. So King Ian had grown a lot. Swish! So King Ian's figure tore through the air and transformed into a stream of light. Under the gazes of everyone, her figure flew into the spatial passageway and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Buzz! The next moment, in the sky above the palace of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect's legacy competition, a projection appeared. In the projection, it was So King Ian. She had just teleported to the dried Chong River through the spatial passageway. She was currently standing on the riverbed. The legacy competition has officially begun. Deist Azure Dragon shouted loudly, all legacy disciples who have passed the puppet screening, enter the spatial passageway and be teleported to the Chong River. Then, you will find the gap of the ancient Grotto-heaven and enter it. Let's go. Swoosh! 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 As soon as he finished speaking, the legacy disciples' figures tore through the air like streaks of light as they rushed upwards. They entered the spatial passageway one after another and were teleported away. Junior brother Qi, why aren't you setting off? Zhang Feijuan looked at the calm Qi Ming. No rush. Qi Ming said. Then I'll be leaving first. Zhang Feijuan replied. Not long after, the legacy disciples of the Green Cloud Peak around Qi Ming teleported away through the spatial passageway and headed for the Chong River, leaving Qi Ming alone. This kid is not anxious at all. Miao Hongjian said. That's true. Feng Zimu said, those who achieve great things naturally have to be calm and composed. He. Wei Donghua laughed, I think that Qi Ming is a little arrogant after obtaining first place in the puppet screening. He doesn't know his place. That makes sense. The other peak masters said and deliberately belittled Qi Ming. Qi Ming had already arrived in front of the spatial passageway. He raised his foot and walked in. His figure disappeared into the spatial passageway and immediately felt weightlessness. His vision was blank. Buzz. The next moment, Qi Ming's vision returned to normal, and the weightlessness disappeared. This is... Qi Ming looked around. What greeted his eyes was an empty river bed. Because the Chang River had dried up more than 30 years ago, the river bed had long dried up and was filled with cracks. He looked up. The sky was cloudless. The spiritual qi is too thin. Qi Ming took a deep breath and sensed that the surrounding spiritual qi was extremely thin. It was completely unable to be compared to the Heaven Enlightenment Sect. It was the difference between heaven and earth. If the spiritual qi unit in the Chang River bed was 1, then the spiritual qi unit of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect generally exceeded 100. In some special places, it was enough to reach thousands or even tens of thousands of units. From this, it was obvious. The environment of the outside world was far inferior to the Heaven Enlightenment Sect. The Chang River was already in the outside world. Next, I should find the entrance to the ancient Grotto-heaven. With the thought, Qi Ming consumed his dharmic powers and calculated with his fingers. He quickly determined the exact location of the ancient Grotto-heaven. He did not have to search blindly like the other legacy disciples. Buzz! The dharmic powers on Qi Ming's body shook, and he easily neutralized the backlash killing intent. With Qi Ming's current cultivation level, as long as it was not something that involved the workings of the heavens, the backlash caused by it could easily be offset with his dharmic powers. Of course, if Qi Ming enhanced the purity golden body, he could do even more. Riding clouds and fog. Qi Ming circulated his dharmic powers and used the heavenly constellation 36 techniques. Clouds and fog surrounded him. In the blink of an eye, a white cloud condensed. Then, he jumped up and stood on the white cloud. Go! Swish! Qi Ming was like a stream of light as he disappeared from the spot. His speed was extremely fast as he flew towards the gap in the ancient Grotto-heaven. Riding clouds and fog. This was the flying method of the heavenly constellation 36 techniques. It was considered a mystic technique divine power that was relatively easy to master. The speed at which one flew was mainly related to their cultivation level. The higher his cultivation level, the faster he could fly. On the contrary, the lower his cultivation level, the slower his flying speed would be. Not long after, Qi Ming met his fellow disciple. The two sides met. Then, they looked at each other from afar. Qi Ming. The other party was a short-haired youth. We actually met here. You are. Qi Ming looked at the other party and did not know him. I'm the legacy disciple of the Immortal Progression Peak, Zhang Ming. The short-haired youth introduced himself and revealed his identity. I've long heard of your reputation. Since we're fated to meet, let me see if the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture is as powerful as the rumors say. You want to attack? Qi Ming asked. Of course. Zhang Ming answered. You're not my match. How would we know if we haven't fought? Zhang Ming retorted. In the sky above the palace of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect's legacy competition, thousands of projections appeared. The situation of the legacy disciples was spread to everyone. In the immortal entering floating palace. This kid, Zhang Ming, why is he finding trouble with Qi Ming for no reason? The legacy elder of the immortal progression peak, Shi Kaishan, frowned. What we should do now is to immediately find the entrance to the ancient Grotto-heaven. This Qi Ming has 3 spirit pets protecting him. How can he be so easy to deal with? Zhang Ming has cultivated the Dao nascent soul and is very strong. Even if this Qi Ming has a spirit pet, he should not be Zhang Ming's match. Spirit pets are just spirit pets after all. They're only an external force. His own cultivation is still the most important. The legacy elders of the Immortal Progression Peak said in succession. This Zhang Ming is really detestable. Lu Qingjian frowned slightly. Why do you have to find trouble with junior brother? Qi Ming's cultivation level is only at the late-stage core formation realm. Feng Zimua pondered, this Zhang Ming must have cultivated the Dao nascent soul. Qi Ming has 3 spirit pets to protect him. It's not like he can't fight. He still has a chance of winning. Chapter 104, One-Sided Domination. The battle between Zhang Ming and Qi Ming still attracted the attention of many elders. Even Sect Master Yang Li and the three Grand Elders noticed. Of course, this was not because of Zhang Ming, but because of Qi Ming. Qi Ming had obtained first place in the puppet screening. He had the attention of many big shots. Moreover, Qi Ming was also the main character of the conversation. News of the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture had already spread. It was still the same issue. In the entire Heaven Enlightenment sect, only 3 had mastered the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture. The founder, Deist Heaven Enlightenment, Lu Fengjian, who had ascended 100,000 years ago, and the current sect master. Every one of them was a famous figure. They all wanted to see what kind of strength Qi Ming could possess after mastering the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture. Everyone was curious. When Qi Ming passed through the spatial passageway, I specially used a divine power spell to observe his cultivation level. He indeed did not break through to the nascent soul realm and is only at the late-stage core formation realm. Deist Azure Dragon said. Oh! Patriarch Huiyan said, you're too bored. Why are you checking the cultivation levels of juniors for no reason? It's not good to do so, you will make him detest the section. However, Qi Ming cultivated 2 late-stage nascent soul realm spirit pets and an early-stage nascent soul realm spirit pet with his late-stage core formation realm cultivation. This talent is indeed extraordinary. Zhang Ming should have cultivated the Dao nascent soul. Deist Purple Firmament said, in terms of cultivation realm, although he's only at the early stage nascent soul realm, his strength can't be measured by cultivation realm. Then let's see if Qi Ming really has the qualifications to sit in the first place. Yang Li said. Buzz. Dharmic powers surged around Zhang Ming as green and white light appeared. The Dao nascent soul in his dantian released an extremely powerful aura that pressed down on Qi Ming. Qi Ming felt that the power of Zhang Ming's Dao nascent soul blew over like a breeze. There was no pressure. There are no restrictions on fighting among legacy disciples. Zhang Ming said, take this. Crack. Zhang Ming attacked. Green and white light condensed and turned into bolts of lightning. They were like a net that quickly enveloped Qi Ming and blocked his dodging direction. Roar. The Dawn Dark Bat Demon rushed out of thin air and roared. It released a sound wave spell that formed a fan shape and defeated Zhang Ming's lightning net. A late-stage nascent soul realm spirit pet. Zhang Ming took a deep breath and sized up the Dawn Dark Bat Demon a few times. His expression relaxed slightly. Unfortunately, it's only the false nascent soul. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Ming waved his right hand and took out his intrinsic Dharma treasure. It was a spear wrapped in green and white lightning. The spear was slender and had dragon patterns engraved on it. It was called the Coiling Dragon Spear. With this false nascent soul realm spirit pet, it can't win me at all. Zhang Ming appeared extremely confident. Come back. Qi Ming said. Swish. The Dawn Dark Bat Demon quickly returned to Qi Ming's side. Don't worry. Qi Ming smiled and said, I never planned to use my spirit pets to deal with you. No matter what, you're the first legacy disciple I've encountered in this legacy competition and my first opponent. For this reason, I'm prepared to personally attack. It can be considered as respecting my first opponent. You. An angry expression appeared on Zhang Ming's face. Qi Ming. You're too arrogant. Good. Then let me see your true ability. Come and fight. Swish. Zhang Ming held the coiling dragon spear and shot out like a spear light. This Qi Ming actually said such arrogant words. He wants to personally attack? With his late-stage core formation realm cultivation, if he doesn't rely on spirit pets, how can he fight Zhang Ming? Is he all talk and no action? Qi Ming shouldn't be making such a mistake. He must have some method. Everyone discussed. Clang. Qi Ming raised his hand and pointed. A sword light overflowed from his fingertip, appearing pure green. This was the sign of condensing dharmic powers to the limit. Not only that, it also contained an extremely powerful sword Dao that carried the enhancement of the heaven and earth Dao runes. Jiang Ming was stunned. His right hand held the tail of the coiling dragon spear tightly, and the extremely sharp tip of the spear was very powerful under the strike just now. It was enough to shatter a mountain. However, it was blocked by Qi Ming's finger. Seeing such a scene, under such circumstances, it was not only Jiang Ming who was stunned. All the elders who were watching this battle were also stunned. What method is this? Impressive. This Qi Ming. Gasp. He only used a finger to block Jiang Ming's attack. This is unbelievable. The elders exclaimed. Chaos Green Lotus Sword Scripture. Yang Li's gaze was sharp. He looked at Qi Ming and carefully observed his finger. He has already grasped the power of the Chaos Green Lotus Sword Dao. Daoist Azure Dragon and the others were also shocked when they heard Yang Li. Junior brother. Lu Qingjian's beautiful eyes lit up. Ha ha ha. Feng Zimu laughed loudly. He was very excited. He was very happy. It felt good. This is impossible. Jiang Ming roared. He mobilized all the strength in his body, and his dharmic powers surged. The power of his Dao nascent soul was released, and a lightning Dharma idol appeared behind him. Ah! Bang bang bang! In an instant, Jiang Ming attacked countless times. Illusions appeared, and the sky was filled with spear shadows surrounded by lightning. While it was magnificent, it was also filled with powerful might. Jiang Ming! The legacy elders of the immortal progression peak could not help but shout. Facing Jiang Ming's fancy attacks, Qi Ming only stretched out his hand and grabbed forward. Unknowingly, an invisible force covered the surroundings and grabbed all the spear shadows. The spear shadows and lightning dissipated. Clang! Finally, Qi Ming flicked his finger and struck the coiling dragon spear. It contained a huge force that directly acted on Jiang Ming's body. He cried out in pain as the bones in his hand almost broke. Ah! The next moment, Jiang Ming screamed. The coiling dragon spear in his hand was flicked away by Qi Ming's finger. It flew for a long time and fell to the ground. Do you still want to fight? Qi Ming clasped his hands behind his back and looked at Jiang Ming indifferently. Aye. Jiang Ming held his right hand with his left hand as intense pain came. He looked at Qi Ming with a bitter expression. He did not expect to be defeated so thoroughly and so easily. From the beginning to the end, Qi Ming did not even take out his Dharma treasure. I lost. Jiang Ming lowered his head. Qi Ming nodded. Swish. Then, riding clouds and fog. Qi Ming had already turned around and left without saying a word. Qi. Jiang Ming raised his head and wanted to call out to Qi Ming, but he could not say anything. He could only look at Qi Ming's back. After a long while, he returned to his senses, found his intrinsic Dharma treasure, and quickly left. After this battle, Jiang Ming deeply understood how terrifying Qi Ming's strength was. It was completely impossible to estimate it with cultivation and realm. If he relied on his cultivation and realm to infer Qi Ming's strength, then the outcome would only be defeat. Too powerful. Jiang Ming pondered, he's too strong. In my opinion, Qi Ming's strength is like an abyss. It's unfathomable. Perhaps only those veteran legacy disciples who have cultivated to the late-stage nascent soul realm can fight Qi Ming. Moreover, it's still unknown if they can defeat him. This is a battle on a completely different level. Daoist Azure Dragon came to a conclusion, this Qi Ming should only be at the late-stage core formation realm, but his strength is really too unbelievable. Jiang Ming is completely suppressed in his hands and can't see any hope of winning. There's an absolute difference in strength between the two sides. That might not be the case. Patriarch Huiyan said, perhaps Qi Ming cultivated a special technique and hit his cultivation level. That's why you can see that he's only in the late-stage core formation realm. No, no. Daoist Purple Firmament shook his head, if Qi Ming hid his cultivation, it means that he has already reached the nascent soul realm. To reach the nascent soul realm in such a short period of time, this cultivation talent is even more exaggerated. If Qi Ming is really only at the late-stage core formation realm, then he defeated the early-stage nascent soul realm Zhang Ming with his late-stage core formation realm cultivation. Moreover, he crushed him. This is also an extremely talented performance. No matter what the situation is, Qi Ming's performance is extremely outstanding. Indeed. Daoist Azure Dragon and Patriarch Huiyan nodded. Clearly, they had gradually acknowledged Qi Ming. In the 12 floating palaces, the elders were also in an uproar. He won. Junior brother won. Lu Qingjian said happily and excitedly, Junior brother is so powerful. He actually defeated the legacy disciple of the immortal progression peak, Zhang Ming, so easily. Feng Zimo nodded with a smile. Moreover, this time, Qi Ming did not use his spirit pets. Instead, he used his own strength to crush Zhang Ming. So we still underestimated junior brother Qi. Fan Zhong sighed. Damn it! This battle of Zhang Ming's has really disgraced us. There's no choice. We didn't expect this Qi Ming to have such ability. That's right. The elders of the immortal progression peak looked a little down. No matter what, after Qi Ming's battle with Zhang Ming, the elders of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect had a relatively clear understanding of Qi Ming's strength. A few hours later, Qi Ming had already arrived at the gap of the ancient Grotto-heaven. As he flew, on both sides of the river bank, Qi Ming saw many villages and towns that had already become ruins. The people who used to live here had basically all moved away. This was because the Chang River had dried up and lost its water source. The residents who originally lived here could only move. Otherwise, they would only die. Additionally, it was unknown if he was affected by the ancient Grotto-heaven. On both sides of the Chang River, ghosts often appeared. No residents or citizens dared to live here. This is the gap, right? Qi Ming stood on the white cloud and looked down from the sky. Below him was the Chang River's riverbed. The riverbed was dried and cracked. There was a huge 100-meter-long crack here. This crack was very deep. Looking carefully, in the depths of the gap, there was a faint different luster. The gap of the ancient Grotto-heaven was at the bottom of this crack. Apart from Qi Ming, there was also a legacy disciple of the Dao-seeking sect who arrived here earlier than Qi Ming. Of course, he was only a few steps ahead. Before the other party could go down, Qi Ming came. Chapter 105, Information leaked. Fellow Daoist of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect. This legacy disciple of the Dao-seeking sect sensed Qi Ming's arrival and raised his head to look at him. He cupped his hands slightly and bowed to Qi Ming, "Why don't you come down and have a chat?" A legacy disciple of the Dao-seeking sect. Qi Ming accepted the invitation and stopped riding the clouds. He descended from the sky and stood in front of the Dao-seeking sect legacy disciple. "You arrived so quickly. I was just lucky." The legacy disciple of the Dao-seeking sect smiled and explained, "I'm Dao Junchen. I'm a legacy disciple of the Dao-seeking sect. Do I have the honor to know your name?" "Dao Junchen." Qi Ming muttered and sized up the other party. He had a handsome face, well-defined facial features, and a sharp face. He was quite handsome and could be said to be a rare handsome man. Qi Ming also smiled, "You were just lucky." Qi Ming also liked to use lucky to answer questions that he did not want to answer. This legacy disciple of the Dao-seeking sect called Dao Junchen seemed to have such a hobby. It was not a hobby. It was a method and habit to deal with problems. Yes. Dao Junchen nodded. "I was indeed lucky. I happened to pass through the spatial passageway in the sect and arrived near the gap of the ancient Grotto-heaven. Fellow Daoist, you haven't introduced yourself yet." "I'm Qi Ming." Qi Ming said, a legacy disciple of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect. "Fellow Daoist Qi Ming." Dao Junchen cupped his hands and bowed again. Qi Ming returned the greeting, Daoist Dao Junshin. It's fate that we met. Why don't we explore this ancient Grotto-heaven together? Dao Junshin suddenly suggested. Even the elders in the sect don't know the exact situation inside this ancient Grotto-heaven, but it sucked up the entire Chong River overnight. In the Chong River, there are many demons living there, including many powerful demons who have already broken through to the nascent soul realm, but they are still sucked in without any ability to resist. From this, it can be seen that this ancient Grotto-heaven is not a safe place. Even if there are not many dangers in the ancient Grotto-heaven, the greater demons that were swept into the Chong River are not easy to deal with. If we can travel together, we can definitely help each other. From the beginning to the end, this legacy disciple from the Dao-seeking sect, Dao Junshin, did not show any hostility. Instead, he wanted to rope Qi Ming in to explore the ancient Grotto-heaven. He was very friendly. He did not seem like a competitor. No need. Qi Ming said, we're not disciples of the same sect to begin with. If we want to travel together, I prefer to find my fellow disciples. Moreover, if I go with you and let my fellow disciples see, it'll probably be difficult to explain. It's the same for you and me. Fellow Daoist, this is a small matter. I don't care about this. Dao Junshin shook his head. I care. Qi Ming said. Fellow Daoist. Dao Junshin immediately said, we hit it off at first sight. How can we be affected by such a small matter? I'll go first. Qi Ming ignored Dao Junshin and walked towards the crack in front of him. He jumped down and quickly fell. Not long after, he saw the gap at the bottom. The gap was not big. It was an irregular oval. It was about 3 meters in diameter. Crystal-like crystals could be seen at the edge. At all times, spiritual qi surged out. Moreover, an invisible restriction enveloped the gap, limiting the entry of existences above the nascent soul realm. Qi Ming only sized it up a few times before entering this gap. Fellow Daoist. Dao Junshin chased after him and saw that Qi Ming had already entered. He shouted, wait for me. Swish. Dao Junshin followed closely. Time passed. Not long after, more and more legacy disciples of the 12 peaks of the Heaven Enlightenment sect and the legacy disciples of the Dao-seeking sect's 12 palaces arrived one after another and entered the ancient Grotto-heaven. During this period, some legacy disciples of the 12 peaks of the Heaven Enlightenment sect and the legacy disciples of the Dao-seeking sect's 12 palaces had a conflict. They even fought. Neither side gained much advantage. Half a day later, the legacy disciples of the Dao-seeking sect's 12 palaces and the legacy disciples of the 12 peaks of the Heaven Enlightenment sect had already found the gap of the ancient Grotto-heaven and entered it. However, something bigger happened. Because the news had already been leaked, the scene changed. In the southern region, 10,000 Buddha Temple. Amitabha. The heads of the 10,000 Buddha Temple gathered. They had just received news that an ancient Grotto-heaven had appeared at the border between the southern region and the eastern region. This was a huge matter. It attracted the attention of the entire 10,000 Buddha Temple's monks and Buddhas. The Chong River event happened 38 years ago. Because the Chong River event was in the mortal world under the jurisdiction of the Heaven Enlightenment sect, we were unable to know the exact situation at that time. However, I can confirm that the matter regarding the ancient Grotto-heaven is absolutely true. The ancient Grotto-heaven has a restriction that doesn't allow cultivators above the nascent soul realm to enter. We definitely can't go over. Moreover, if we go over, we will immediately be discovered by the Grand Elders of the Heaven Enlightenment sect. Pass down the order. Let the Buddha children go. We have to snatch this ancient Grotto-heaven's opportunity. At the very least, we have to have a share of the loot. Okay. It's decided. The leaders of the 10,000 Buddha Temple settled the matter. Then, they began to move. It was not only the 10,000 Buddha Temple. Spring-Autumn Sect, Myriad Demon Cave, and the Demon Court. All of them received news about the ancient Grotto-heaven. Moreover, after they obtained accurate information, they also sent their sect's legacy disciples to Chang River. For a moment, the entire southern region was stirred. Most importantly, in the eastern region, the Four Seas Dragon Palace, the Divine Spirit Court, and the Demon Immortal Sect. The three sects of the same level as the Dao-seeking sect had also obtained the news of the ancient Grotto-heaven. They acted immediately and sent legacy disciples. The ancient Grotto-heaven had already become the center of this storm. As for how the news was leaked. First, the Heaven Enlightenment sect had spies from the Spring-Autumn sect, the 10,000 Buddha temple, and even the Myriad Demon Cave. They hid very deeply. Of course, the Heaven Enlightenment sect also had disciples hiding in the Spring-Autumn sect, the 10,000 Buddha temple, and the Myriad Demon Cave. Both sides were infiltrated. They restrained each other. As for the eastern region, the situation of the Dao-seeking sect was also very different from the Heaven Enlightenment sect. The ancient Grotto-heaven was important. Since the Heaven Enlightenment sect and the Dao-seeking sect had already decided to expose it, it was impossible to continue hiding. The news would definitely be leaked. It was only a matter of time. However, it was a little unexpected that it leaked so quickly. Moreover, the Dao-seeking sect and the Heaven Enlightenment sect were both prepared. The northern and western regions had actually also received some ambiguous news, and it was still uncertain. Moreover, the distance was too far, so their influence could not reach the location. As for the central region, they would not care. Now, Qi Ming had already entered the ancient Grotto-heaven for a period of time. The current environment Qi Ming was in an extremely dense primitive forest. Moreover, the spiritual Qi was extremely abundant, completely not lower or even higher than in the Heaven Enlightenment sect. In the surroundings, there were incomparably huge trees that towered into the clouds. Their crowns blocked out the sun. Moreover, in this ancient Grotto-heaven, there was a scorching sun hanging high in the sky. To be precise, based on what Qi Ming had seen so far, this ancient Grotto-heaven was like a true world. Of course, as for the exact situation, Qi Ming still needed to continue exploring on his own to completely understand it. As for where the inheritance of this ancient Grotto-heaven was, Qi Ming did not have much idea at the moment. Fellow Daoist. Dao Junchen came with Qi Ming and smiled. We're really fated to meet again in this ancient Grotto-heaven. Therefore, I really think that we should join forces to explore this ancient Grotto-heaven. I've already said that I'm not interested. Qi Ming glanced indifferently at Dao Junchen. Fellow Daoist, you can't say that. Dao Junchen followed. As the saying goes, there's strength in numbers. If anything happens, it's always good to have someone to help. Qi Ming did not respond. Originally, he planned to use future sight and heavenly observation to deduce the true origin of this ancient Grotto-heaven and the land of inheritance. However, this Dao Junchen followed him shamelessly, and it really made Qi Ming feel extremely vexed. Moreover, Dao Junchen greeted him with a smile. No matter how Qi Ming berated him coldly, he did not feel anything. He was like glue. Qi Ming could not shake him off. He seemed to be determined to follow Qi Ming. If it were anyone else, they would not resist Dao Junchen too much. However, Qi Ming was different. Get lost! Clang! Qi Ming waved his right hand, and a sword appeared. It was the world-piercing sword. He looked at Dao Junchen coldly. If you still don't leave, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Cough cough. Dao Junchen was shocked and jumped back a step. He said, Fellow Daoist Qi Ming, why are you doing this? Even if the two of us can't join forces, we won't become enemies. No, no. Fellow Daoist, please put away the sword. The sword is a sharp weapon and is also a ferocious weapon. It's not good if you accidentally injure others and injure yourself. Noisy. Clang. Qi Ming attacked without any hesitation. He slashed out a sword. Golden core dharmic powers fused into it, and with the enhancement of the heaven and earth Dao runes, it transformed into a sharp sword chi that slashed at Dao Junchen. Fellow Daoist! Dao Junchen cried out in surprise. He waved his right hand, and a three-legged cauldron appeared. The body of the cauldron was black and yellow, and it was carved with mountains and rivers. It was lifelike. This was the mountain river black-yellow cauldron. Boom! There was a loud sound. Qi Ming's sword chi slashed down and erupted with powerful force. It was clearly only golden core dharmic powers, but it was condensed to the limit and was extremely powerful. It sent Dao Junchen's mountain river black-yellow cauldron flying. Oh no! Dao Junchen was shocked and quickly put away the mountain river black-yellow cauldron. However, he discovered that a crack had actually appeared on the cauldron's body. He was furious and heartbroken. At the same time, he was also a little shocked. Fellow Daoist Qi Ming, Dao Junchen quickly said, "We'll meet again if we're fated." Swish! As soon as he finished speaking, Dao Junchen quickly used the 5 elements escape technique to leave. He could block my sword. Qi Ming pondered for a moment. Dao Junchen's strength is not weak. On the other side, Dao Junchen fled for 5 kilometers before stopping. This Qi Ming is too ferocious. Dao Junchen felt lingering fear in his heart as he wiped the non-existent sweat on his forehead and said, "That strike from before actually slashed apart my mountain river black-yellow cauldron." From the dharmic powers he showed just now, he should be at the late-stage core formation realm. But how can a late-stage core formation realm cultivator be so strong? Also, buzz! Dao Junchen took out an 8 trigrams token. In the center was a bronze mirror. On the bronze mirror, a line of rainbow-colored words appeared: "Follow Qi Ming." Huge blessing! I really don't dare to follow anymore. I'm afraid I'll be killed. Dao Junchen said. Chapter 106, Ancient Demon Emperor, Yinglong. After chasing Dao Junchen away, Qi Ming felt a little relieved. After all, he felt a little uncomfortable having a stranger beside him who he had only known for less than half an hour. Moreover, Qi Ming still had very important things to do. This is the world-piercing sword. Yang Li looked at the projection and stared at the world-piercing sword in Qi Ming's hand with a surprised expression. Isn't Qi Ming's intrinsic Dharma treasure the Chaos Green Lotus Sword embryo? What's up with the world-piercing sword? Could it be? Qi Ming did not only refine the Chaos Green Lotus Sword embryo, he also refined the world-piercing sword. Half an hour later, Qi Ming found a quiet cave. The demon bear in the cave was killed by Qi Ming with a single strike. This quiet cave became Qi Ming's territory. Illusion array. Rise! Buzz! Qi Ming waved his right hand and formed hand seals. Formation seals appeared and he casually threw out a few array foundations. They landed in 4 directions and instantly formed an illusion array. Qi Ming's array formation attainment was extremely high. At the same time, he waved his hand again and blocked the senses of the legacy token. The projection scene where Qi Ming was became pitch black and he could not see anything. The design of the legacy token was quite humane. For example, if Qi Ming did not want others to see anything, he could use his dharmic powers to temporarily block the senses of the legacy token. This way, the scene would not be transmitted. Qi Ming blocked the legacy token. What does he want to do? He probably wants to do something that he doesn't want us to see. I'm suddenly a little curious about what Qi Ming wants to do. That's right, that's right. The elders of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect discussed. In addition, in the other projections, the legacy disciples of the 12 peaks of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect had their own opportunities. There were even a few who had already fought the legacy disciples of the Dao-seeking sect. The battle between the two sides was difficult to determine. No matter what, both sides were legacy disciples. The cultivation methods and Dharma treasures on them were both at the top level of the same realm. Therefore, if one wanted to determine the winner, it would still depend on the combat experience of the two sides. Some disciples were also quite lucky. After entering the ancient Grotto-heaven, they encountered different opportunities. Although they did not know if this opportunity was good or bad, it also attracted the attention of many elders, including King Ian. After she entered the ancient Grotto-heaven, she landed in front of a huge palace. However, this palace had turned into ruins. After she entered, she encountered some strange tests. King Ian was extremely lucky. It was extraordinary. According to her experiences, her providence had probably reached the top 5 colors. Let's begin. Qi Ming had already set up the illusion array. With a thought, he formed hand seals and the dharmic powers in his body surged out. They were quickly consumed. He first used the mystic technique, heavenly observation. Heavenly observation. Then, he traced the history of this ancient Grotto-heaven, and everything that had happened in the past gradually appeared in Qi Ming's mind. Qi Ming's mastery of the heavenly constellation 36 techniques was only at the entry level. He could not figure out the secret of this ancient Grotto-heaven by relying on the heavenly observation. Many key points were enveloped in fog and could not be seen clearly. Future sight. Buzz. Qi Ming formed another seal and mobilized vast dharmic powers. The Great Dao true mark of the Khanate purity Great Dao golden core flickered with light as the Dao runes of the heaven and earth Dao circulated. In an instant, Qi Ming looked at the past, present, and future. The layers of fog were torn apart. He saw the truth of the ancient Grotto-heaven. After a moment, the Dao runes of the heaven and earth Great Dao around Qi Ming disappeared, and the distorted space and time returned to normal. His dharmic powers calmed down, but he had consumed a huge amount of energy. Qi Ming revealed a shocked expression. It's actually like this. Qi Ming said, this ancient Grotto-heaven was actually created by the ancient demon emperor, Yinglong. It is called the Yinglong Grotto-heaven. It's not a paradise for humans at all. No wonder the Chang River was swept in 38 years ago, and the demon beasts in the Chang River were not restricted. All of them entered this Grotto-heaven. Instead, human cultivators are restricted. As for the inheritance, Qi Ming raised his head and looked to the extreme east of the ancient Grotto-heaven. If I'm not wrong, it should be in the Yinglong temple in the extreme east. Yinglong. It was an emperor among the transformed dragons and had wings on its body. Through tracing history, Qi Ming had cleared the fog. It could be said that he had personally seen the ancient demon emperor, Yinglong. The characteristic was that it had wings, scales, and spines. Its head was big and long, and its mouth, noses, eyes, and ears were small. Its eyes were large, its brows were arched, its teeth were sharp, and its forehead protruded. Its neck was thin, its tail was long, and its limbs were strong. Its body size could change at will. It could be as big as heaven and earth or as small as a snake or ant. In addition, in the truth that Qi Ming saw, Yinglong was not born a dragon. It had transformed into a dragon and ascended to the top step by step. At the beginning, this ancient demon emperor, Yinglong, was only a venomous snake. It was a snake that was born with venom. After cultivating for 500 years, it transformed into a flood dragon. After cultivating for another 1000 years, it transformed from a flood dragon to a hornless dragon. After that, it cultivated for 1500 years before transforming from a hornless dragon to a horned dragon. Finally, after 2500 years of cultivation, it had truly transformed into Yinglong and was called an ancient demon emperor. It was truly a legend. Unfortunately, Qi Ming did not see the true end of this ancient demon emperor, Yinglong. He did not know if it had died or gone further and shattered the void. To the other legacy disciples, they knew nothing about this ancient Grotto-heaven. They did not know anything about its origin. Only by constantly exploring and searching could they infer the origin of this ancient Grotto-heaven from the clues they found. Qi Ming directly knew all the secrets of the ancient Grotto-heaven. This had already completely widened the distance between them. He was ahead of everyone. Buzz. 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 Suddenly, Qi Ming's entire body shook as the dharmic powers in his body surged. This was the backlash of spying on the heavenly secrets. Golden Core Great Dao Scripture. Buzz. Qi Ming shouted loudly. Scripture circulated and Great Dao True marks spread out. He used the Golden Core Great Dao True intent to suppress the surging dharmic powers in his body. Phew! Qi Ming still spat out a mouthful of blood. He suffered some internal injuries. Of course, the backlash of heaven and earth had not ended. Heaven and earth nurtured killing intent that transformed into invisible obliteration tribulation wind that surged towards Qi Ming. Wherever it passed, the entire cave would turn to ashes. The illusion array set up by Qi Ming was completely destroyed by the obliteration tribulation wind. Purity Golden Body. Buzz. Qi Ming immediately used the Purity Golden Body. The heaven and earth Great Dao True marks circulated, forming a golden light that enveloped Qi Ming's entire body, blocking the worldly killing intent and forming the obliteration tribulation wind. It was the spell immunity effect. Huff! Qi Ming heaved a sigh of relief, but he discovered that his clothes had turned to ashes under the obliteration tribulation wind. He immediately took out his clothes from his inventory and wore them again. Immediately after, Qi Ming took out a healing pill from his inventory and swallowed it. The internal injuries caused by the backlash of his dharmic powers instantly recovered. Riding Golden Light. Swish! Qi Ming used the Heavenly Constellation 36 Technique's Mystic Technique, Riding Golden Light. He could transform into a golden light and travel thousands of miles in a day. It was an extremely brilliant escape technique. Legend had it that it was passed down by the sage, Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning. As his cultivation level increased, the golden light would be even faster. Riding clouds and fog was suitable for long-distance travel. Although its speed was not comparable to riding golden light, the consumption was very small. It did not even require any dharmic powers. On the contrary, riding golden light was different. It was suitable for a short-distance flight and was even an extremely useful escape technique. It was very fast. In exchange, it consumed a lot of energy. In order to arrive at the Yinglong temple earlier, Qi Ming used the technique and transformed into a golden light to fly in the sky. He rushed to the extreme east like a golden bolt of lightning. On the other side. Treasure Mirror, oh Treasure Mirror! Dao Junchen waved his right hand and blocked the senses from the Dao-seeking sect. He looked at the 8 trigrams mirror in his hand and sighed, "You asked me to follow Qi Ming, but I don't know if he discovered something. I followed him shamelessly, but he insisted on chasing me away and even attacked. It's not that I'm afraid of Qi Ming, but there's no need to fight him at all. Moreover, I came here to find opportunities, not to fight. I, Dao Junchen, have never liked fighting. If I continue following, I'll probably be slashed to death by Qi Ming. Forget it." Dao Junchen took a deep breath, "I can only find another opportunity." Buzz! Dao Junchen put away the 8 trigrams mirror. He stood up and prepared to leave. This mirror was called the Heaven and Earth Providence 8 trigrams mirror. There was also fate involved. Back then, when Dao Junchen was just 6 years old, he accidentally fell into the river and the back of his head hit a sharp stone at the bottom of the river. It cut his head, and his blood was coincidentally absorbed by the Heaven and Earth Providence 8 trigrams mirror that was covered in dust at the bottom of the river. They were bound by blood since Dao Junchen had already grasped the initial use of the Heaven and Earth Providence 8 trigrams mirror. At the beginning, Dao Junchen was still young and knew nothing. However, he would sometimes inexplicably hear a voice. According to the reminder of this voice, he could obtain some good things. However, sometimes, he would encounter danger. Until he was 14 years old, he left the village in advance according to the reminder of the voice. When he returned, the entire village was slaughtered by the bandits, and he was stunned on the spot. The voice only reminded him to leave the village, but it did not tell him why. This was both unfortunate and fortunate. A legacy elder of the Dao-seeking sect passed by here. Because the smell of blood was heavier after the village was slaughtered, he accidentally glanced over. Then, he discovered Dao Junchen and sensed his talent. Dao Junchen then entered the Dao-seeking sect. Because his talent was very high, he directly became a legacy disciple of Gongsun Daoming, a legacy elder of the Four Symbols Palace of the 12 Palaces of the Dao-seeking sect. He could be said to have reached the heavens in a single step. After that, Dao Junchen gradually figured out the ability of the Heaven and Earth Providence 8 trigrams mirror. He also used it and put in his own effort to become the eldest legacy senior brother of the Four Symbols Palace. In addition, in the entire Dao-seeking sect, Dao Junchen's reputation was extremely high. As Dao Junchen glanced at the bronze mirror, it reminded him that if he left now, he would encounter a fortune that came knocking on his door. Dao Junchen had only taken a few steps when he discovered traces of the demons. Demons! Die! He directly attacked and took out his Dharma treasure to kill the two demons. After plundering, he found 2 incomplete maps and 2 special tokens. This is... Dao Junchen's eyes lit up as he said happily, a map. This is an incomplete map of the ancient Grotto-heaven. Ha ha ha. Chapter 107, Lust Demon Dao. Qi Ming flew through the air with riding golden light all the way. His speed was very fast. He was high in the sky and looked down at the vast forest. It was huge and had various demon beasts occupying it. Roar! Not long after, Qi Ming encountered the first demon beast living in the Yinglong Grotto-heaven. Its huge body and wings were spread out. It was about 100 meters tall. Its entire body was grayish-black and covered in scales, like an ancient dragon that had been enlarged many times. Swish! Qi Ming dodged and avoided the attack of the demon-winged dragon. Humans! All of you deserve to die. The demon-winged dragon spat out words. Its killing intent surged and it was even more furious. The next moment, the demon-winged dragon flapped its wings and vast demonic energy gathered, turning into huge wind blades that attacked Qi Ming like a tornado. Myriad forms storm. Boom! Boom! Qi Ming attacked. With a wave of his right hand, the dharmic powers and divine powers of the formless golden core were released. Waves of the power of the formless myriad forms transformed into countless light blades that similarly charged over like a tornado. Bang bang bang! The two sides collided. The storm blasted the storm. There were continuous explosions. Boom! There was a loud sound. The myriad form storm and the demon-winged dragon's tornado dissipated. The aftershock of the battle swept through the surroundings, but it was unable to shake Qi Ming at all. Instead, the demon-winged dragon was forced back by the aftershock of the explosion. Sword, come! Clang! Qi Ming raised his hand, and the world-piercing sword appeared. It transformed into a green sword light that landed in Qi Ming's hand. It spat out sharp sword Qi, Green Lotus Dao. Buzz! The 12th grade Chaos Green Lotus appeared. A powerful might spread out and suppressed the demon-winged dragon's realm. It fell from the late-stage nascent soul realm to the mid-stage nascent soul realm. You humans! You actually dare to enter the Yinglong Grotto-heaven! Boom! The demon-winged dragon roared. Its aura was magnificent as it erupted with dragon might. It gathered all the demonic energy in its body and directly spat out a violent dragon breath. Die! Qi Ming's sword slashed over. Space seemed to collapse under this sword. It was all-powerful and contained the power to cut everything apart, separating the demon-winged dragon's violent dragon breath. Phew! The next moment, the sword light of the world-piercing sword streaked across the demon-winged dragon's body. Blood splattered. This demon-winged dragon was killed by Qi Ming's sword. Its body was slashed into two, and its life force was destroyed. Its nascent soul dissipated, and its soul scattered in the world. The demon-winged dragon's corpse fell to the ground. The ancient matters have long been buried in the long river of time. The past is already in the past. Qi Ming looked at the demon-winged dragon's corpse and said indifferently, if you demons continue to be immersed in the ancient calamity, you will only be courting death. Swish! As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Ming tore through the air and disappeared. Not long after, Qi Ming left the range of this vast forest. On the way, besides the demon-winged dragon, he encountered many demons and fought. Although these demons were very strong, they were not Qi Ming's match at all. He was invincible along the way and slashed all the demons with his sword. So powerful! Qi Ming's strength is too immense. He encountered so many demon attacks along the way, but he's completely fine. He even killed all the demons. He's really powerful. That's right. He's simply slaughtered his way out. The elders of the Heaven Enlightenment sect looked at the scene and battle in the projection. Qi Ming was invincible, and they all sighed with emotion. They already knew that Qi Ming's strength was very strong. Not bad. Daoist Azure Dragon nodded and said in satisfaction, Qi Ming's performance was very good and outstanding. I think he has the qualifications to enter the Heaven Enlightenment Immortal Mountain. There's no rush. Daoist Purple Firmament said, the show has only just begun. That's right. Patriarch Wuyan said, let's wait and see. King Ian. Yang Li's gaze was on So King Ian. After So King Ian entered a ruined temple, she encountered danger and was surrounded by the demons. Outside the vast forest, it was a vast surging river that was thousands of miles long. At a glance, there was no end to it. After the Chang River was swept in back then, it had already fused with this surging river. This surging river was called the Yinglong River. Next, Qi Ming only needed to follow this Yinglong River to the east of this ancient Grotto-heaven and reach the extreme east. Go! Swish! Qi Ming's body turned into a golden light as he quickly advanced. At this moment, outside the ancient Grotto-heaven. Buzz! 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 Uninvited guests had already arrived. Near Chang River, space distorted. It twisted into huge spatial vortexes. Amitabha! Buddha is merciful. Amitabha! The ancient Grotto-heaven appeared. Overnight, the Chang River dried up, causing the people near the 1,000 miles Chang River to be plunged into misery and suffering. They were forced to migrate. We monks have come to save them. Buzz! Golden light shone brightly. The Buddhist proclamation sounded. Sanskrit chanted. The 10,000 Buddha temple was the first to cross the void and construct a spatial passageway. It directly teleported the Buddha children from the 10,000 Buddha temple to the Chang River. Follow my Buddhist Dharma decree and immediately enter the ancient Grotto-heaven. Buddha said, if I don't enter hell, who will? We have to resolve the source of this calamity. Swoosh! 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 The Buddha children transformed into streaks of light and quickly entered through the hole in the ancient Grotto-heaven. The Buddhist light disappeared and in the blink of an eye, there was no one left. Not long after, Spring-Autumn Sect, Myriad Demon Cave, and the Demon Court, the three factions, also sent legacy disciples. They all entered the ancient Grotto-heaven. Another half an hour passed. The Four Seas Dragon Palace, the Divine Spirit Court, and the Demon Immortal Sect. The forces of the eastern region also intervened. The legacy disciples they sent into the ancient Grotto-heaven had unknowingly gathered in the ancient Grotto-heaven. What? Qi Ming raised his head slightly. At this moment, he sensed the change in the Yinglong Grotto-heaven. He sensed his surroundings and the spatial fluctuation was extremely clear. What's going on? Such a strong spatial fluctuation. A large number of living beings have entered the Yinglong Grotto-heaven. Isn't it said that only the legacy disciples of the Dao-seeking sect and the Heaven Enlightenment sect are here? Could it be? Buzz! In front, Qi Ming looked over. Space fluctuated like water ripples. A figure appeared out of thin air and had just stabilized himself. After entering the Yinglong Grotto-heaven from the gap, they would be randomly teleported to anywhere inside. Qi Ming was randomly teleported to the vast forest, and it was the same for Dao Junchen. The person in front of him happened to teleport to Qi Ming. This is the ancient Grotto-heaven. Su Ziyi pondered for a moment. His gaze looked around. The spiritual qi was abundant, and this ancient Grotto-heaven was like a complete small world. However, he had just entered and did not have much information, so he could not infer anything. What? The next moment, Su Ziyi noticed Qi Ming. Fellow Daoist. Su Ziyi smiled gently at Qi Ming. There was an unknown charm in his smile that made people feel as if they had seen the spring breeze and had a good impression of him. I'm Su Ziyi, I wonder. Green Lotus Dao. Qi Ming attacked without any hesitation. He waved his hand and released the Green Lotus Dao. The 12th grade Chaos Green Lotus directly suppressed the other party's cultivation level. You. Su Ziyi raised his head and looked at Qi Ming in shock. He could not help but exclaim, Green Lotus Dao, Chaos Green Lotus Sword Scripture, you're the legacy disciple of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect's Green Cloud Peak, Qi Ming. Oh. Qi Ming raised his eyebrows, it seems that I'm quite famous. Damn it. Su Ziyi's scalp went numb. He was originally only at the mid-stage nascent soul realm. After his realm was suppressed by the Green Lotus Dao, he became an early-stage nascent soul realm cultivator. His strength fell greatly. Green Lotus Sword Dao. Clang! Clang! Qi Ming raised his right hand. In his palm, the Chaos Green Lotus Sword embryo appeared. A Sword Dao Green Lotus appeared. It blossomed and tore through the air. In an instant, countless sword qi enveloped Su Ziyi. Lust Demon Dao. Boom! Su Ziyi roared as monstrous demonic qi immediately surged out of his body. It was pink in color and filled with endless lust. Myriad Lust Demon Scripture. Su Ziyi used a demonic divine power spell technique, Myriad Lust Heart-piercing arrow. Buzz! Buzz! There was endless lust born around Su Ziyi's body. They absorbed the demonic qi and condensed into 10,000 arrows. If he was struck, not only would he be injured, but he would also be corroded by the lust in the arrow, causing him to be in danger of going berserk. He might even die from the flames of lust. Qi Ming's Green Lotus Sword Dao pressed down as his sword slashed at the 10 myriad lust. The sword threads rampaged and defeated the arrows of lust before dissipating. You're indeed the demon of the myriad demon cave. Qi Ming smiled. I'm not wrong. Myriad Demon Cave's 13 Demon Dao of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Qi Ming continued, from the looks of it, you should be cultivating the Lust Demon Dao among the 7 emotions. Your strength is not bad. Unfortunately, you encountered me. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Ming pressed down with his right hand. The Sword Dao Green Lotus had already flown above Su Ziyi's head. The Green Lotus bloomed, and countless sword qi fell like a waterfall and enveloped Su Ziyi. Ah! Su Ziyi roared angrily. He used all his strength, but he was unable to break through the sword qi waterfall of the Sword Dao Green Lotus. A terrified expression appeared on his face. No! 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 I'm curious how your Myriad Demon Cave found this place. Qi Ming sized up the other party. Qi Ming! Su Ziyi roared. His entire body was covered in blood, and the pink demonic qi became thin. If you dare to kill me, our Lust Demon Dao's eldest senior brother will not let you off. The Myriad Demon Cave's Lust Demon Dao faction will not let you off either. Ha ha ha! Qi Ming laughed loudly, his gaze indifferent. This is the first time I've heard that you demonic cultivators will avenge your fellow disciples. I'll wait and see. Buzz. Phew. Qi Ming clenched his right hand and the Sword Dao Green Lotus closed. Countless sword qi directly tore Su Ziyi into pieces of flesh that filled the sky and completely died. Swish. Qi Ming waved his right hand. Su Ziyi's Dharma treasure and storage bag landed in Qi Ming's hand. Chapter 108, Spring-Autumn Sect and the Four Seas Dragon Palace. Qi Ming's methods were also ruthless. He attacked and left the enemy without a corpse. The battle situation on Qi Ming's side had already attracted the attention of the elders of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect. This time, it was not only because Qi Ming's strength crushed the enemy. Instead, it was because the opponent Qi Ming encountered was a demon from the demon cult. This had already exceeded the expectations of the elders. It's a legacy disciple of the myriad demon cave. What's going on? Why would the legacy disciples of the myriad demon cave appear in the ancient Grotto-heaven? Isn't it only the legacy disciples of the Dao-seeking sect and the Heaven Enlightenment sect this time? What happened? If I'm not wrong, the news of the ancient Grotto-heaven must have leaked. The elders discussed solemnly. The development of the matter exceeded their expectations. It's not only the myriad demon cave. Look at the other legacy disciples. The enemies they encountered, the legacy disciples of the Spring-Autumn sect, and the Buddha children of the 10,000 Buddha temple are also here. Damn it! There's also the demon court. The elders of the 12 floating palaces cried out again. Most importantly, there were already casualties on the Heaven Enlightenment sect's side. A legacy disciple of the Jade Luster Peak was jointly attacked by the legacy disciples of the Spring-Autumn sect and the Myriad Demon Cave. Although he used all his strength, he was not a match in the end and was killed on the spot. No. This can't continue. The 12 peak masters all stood up. Their gazes were solemn as they looked at the 3 grand elders and the sect master. Sect master, 3 grand elders, please stop this legacy competition immediately. This matter has already deviated from the original plan. The 5 great factions of the southern region are gathered in the ancient Grotto-heaven. This situation is too dangerous. That's right. For the safety of these legacy disciples, we should immediately stop this legacy competition and bring them back to the Heaven Enlightenment sect. The 12 peak masters said. Not only that, many legacy elders also agreed. Enough. Yang Li's gaze landed, and an invisible pressure suppressed the entire scene, causing everyone present to shut their mouths and fall silent. The Spring-Autumn sect, the 10,000 Buddha temple, the Myriad Demon Cave, and the Demon Court. The people they sent are only legacy disciples of the younger generation. They are also legacy disciples of the younger generation. Could it be that our Heaven Enlightenment sect is afraid of them? You're worried that the legacy disciples of your various peaks will be in danger. I can understand your mood and actions, but my legacy disciple has also entered the ancient Grotto-heaven. Am I not worried? Moreover, Yang Li's tone paused again. Do you think that only the southern region's forces are participating this time? You're wrong. The legacy disciples of the eastern region's 4 Seas Dragon Palace, the Divine Spirit Court, and the Demon Immortal Sect are also here. Things are more chaotic than you think. This legacy competition is so dangerous with threats everywhere. The slightest carelessness will result in death. Therefore, I discussed various rules with the Grand Elders and gave all the legacy disciples a chance to forfeit. We even used the puppet screening to make the legacy disciples with insufficient combat strength withdraw. Sect Master. We. The 12 peak masters fell silent. They were too worried and anxious. Huff. Fan Zhong and the other legacy disciples who had been eliminated heaved a sigh of relief. Their mood was a little complicated. While they were a little relieved, they were also a little regretful that they could not compete with the legacy descendants of the various large factions. The legacy competition continues. Yang Li said solemnly. Yes. Yes. The 12 peak masters sat down again. Daoist Azure Dragon. Yang Li said, pass the news to all the legacy disciples through the legacy token and let them pay attention to it. The legacy disciples of the various factions in the eastern region and the southern region have already entered the ancient Grotto-heaven. Let them not have any worries. Kill these invaders if they can. If anything happens, the Heaven Enlightenment Sect will be their backing. Of course, if they are not strong enough and die in the hands of the legacy disciples of the various large factions, it will merely be their fate. Yes. Deist Azure Dragon nodded. Buzz. The next moment, Deist Azure Dragon used a divine power spell to send this news to the legacy token. The legacy disciples of the 12 peaks of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect received the corresponding news through it. Tisk tisk. Qi Ming had just finished tidying up Su Ziyi's storage bag. There were a large number of spirit stones, various materials, and demonic treasures inside. After all, he was a legacy disciple of the myriad demon caves Lust Demon Dao. His value was quite high. I earned another sum of money. Qi Ming said. He was no longer interested in earning extra money. It was unlike in the past because Qi Ming did not lack spirit stones or materials now. The legacy disciples of the various large factions in the eastern region and the southern region are actually all gathered in this Yinglong Grotto-heaven. This battle is really a little huge. Qi Ming received the news in the legacy token. It was from the Heaven Enlightenment Sect, so the news naturally could not be fake. All kinds of people have come. I keep feeling like there will be a group of demons dancing around. Boom! Boom! At this moment, Qi Ming heard the sound of battle not far away. It was not far. The spiritual qi fluctuation caused by the aftershock of the battle could even reach Qi Ming. Who is it? Swish! Qi Ming transformed into a golden light and headed for the place where the battle had occurred. Not long after, he arrived. He stood at the edge of the battlefield. Looking over, Qi Ming recognized 3 factions. He also saw someone familiar. It was his senior sister, Zhang Feijuan. Apart from that, there were also 4 legacy disciples of the various peaks of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect. As for the other 2 factions, Qi Ming only observed for a while and casually deduced which faction and sect the other party was from. Spring-Autumn Sect and the Four Seas Dragon Palace. Someone else is here. A legacy disciple of the Spring-Autumn Sect raised his head and looked at Qi Ming outside the battlefield. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Moreover, he's a legacy disciple of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect. It doesn't matter if there's one more or one less. Kill them all. The dragon descendant junior of the Four Seas Dragon Palace had a sinister gaze and did not hide his killing intent, or should I say, legacy disciples of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect, if you can hand over the thing you just obtained, I can consider letting you off. This matter was basically clear. Half an hour ago, Zhang Feijuan and the others traveled together and entered an abandoned palace. In this palace, they obtained treasures left behind from the ancient era. Before Zhang Feijuan and the others could celebrate, as soon as they came out of the abandoned palace, they encountered the legacy disciples of the Spring-Autumn Sect and the dragon descendants of the Dragon Palace. Zhang Feijuan and the others, who had obtained the ancient treasures, were targeted. To put it bluntly, this was a very common murder and robbery scene. Yinglong Grotto-heaven was established by the ancient demon emperor, Yinglong. Apart from the Yinglong temple with the greatest inheritance, there were naturally other palaces and halls. These were basically halls belonging to the subordinates of the ancient demon emperor, Yinglong. There were also some treasures left behind from the ancient era. Zhang Feijuan and the others had obtained the inheritance and treasures left behind by a subordinate of the ancient demon emperor, Yinglong. Although they were not very precious, they were already rare treasures to Zhang Feijuan and the others. As for what it was, Qi Ming did not know for the time being. Junior brother. Zhang Feijuan raised her head and saw who it was. A hint of surprise appeared in her beautiful eyes. Why are you here? Go quickly, don't get involved. Senior sister. Qi Ming shrugged and looked at the legacy disciples of the Spring-Autumn Sect and the Four Seas Dragon Palace. Now, I can't leave even if I want to. Ha ha ha. The dragon descendants of the Four Seas Dragon Palace laughed. At least you know your place. Spring-Autumn Sect and the Four Seas Dragon Palace. The legacy disciple of the Divine Smelting Peak, Chen Fengling, had a cold gaze. His cultivation level was already at the late-stage nascent soul realm. Moreover, he had cultivated the nascent soul formation technique to condense a Dao nascent soul. Chen Fengling was a veteran legacy disciple. "You really want to attack?" Chen Fengling shouted. "Hand it over and I can consider letting you live," the legacy disciple of the Spring-Autumn Sect said. "You're courting death." Boom. Chen Fengling did not hesitate anymore. He circulated his cultivation technique and released the power of his Dao nascent soul. His dharmic powers surged as his intrinsic dharma treasure, the divine spirit Vajra, tore through the air. Attack! Chen Fengling held the divine spirit Vajra. His entire body flickered with a dense golden light. Behind him, a three-headed and six-armed Dharma idol appeared with a magnificent aura. Attack! Attack! Without any hesitation, Zhang Feijuan and the other three legacy disciples looked at each other and erupted with their strength. Their dharmic powers surged as they took out their intrinsic dharma treasures and attacked the disciples and dragon descendants of the Spring-Autumn Sect and the Four Seas Dragon Palace. The battle erupted. "You're overestimating yourself. You're courting death. Kill them." Boom. 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 The battle erupted. There were 5 legacy disciples of the Spring-Autumn Sect. One of them was the same as Chen Fengling. His cultivation level had reached the late-stage nascent soul realm, and he had also condensed a Dao nascent soul. Among the other 4, 2 were at the mid-stage nascent soul realm and 2 were at the early-stage nascent soul realm. Additionally, the dragon descendants of the Four Seas Dragon Palace were also not weak. There were a total of 6 of them. Although they were not at the late-stage nascent soul realm, they were all at the mid-stage nascent soul realm. When they joined forces, they could form a special joint array and were extremely powerful. The battle began. Zhang Feijuan and the others were at a disadvantage. Although Chen Fengling was powerful, the late-stage nascent soul realm legacy disciple of the Spring-Autumn Sect was not weak either. When the two sides fought, it was impossible to determine the winner for a moment. This way, Zhang Feijuan and the others were in danger. Phew! Not long after, a legacy disciple was injured. A dragon descendant of the Four Seas Dragon Palace seized the opportunity and revealed a huge dragon head. He opened his bloody mouth and bit off this legacy disciple's left arm. Moreover, after chewing a few times, he swallowed it into his stomach. As expected of the flesh and blood of a legacy disciple. It's much better than those of ordinary humans. Even children can't compare to it. The dragon descendant smiled viciously. The legacy disciple's face was pale, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Ah! Suddenly, everyone heard miserable screams. Looking over, Qi Ming's right hand swelled with the wind and became incomparably huge. Dharmic powers gathered as he grabbed a dragon descendant of the Four Seas Dragon Palace and slowly exerted strength. Chapter 109, Size Adjustment, Subduing Dragons and Tigers. What Qi Ming used was the mystic technique, size adjustment, of the heavenly constellation 36 techniques. He enlarged his right hand many times and turned it into a 10-meter-long thick giant arm. Ah! The dragon descendant junior was still screaming miserably. After he was grabbed by Qi Ming, he could not escape at all. The extremely terrifying power completely restricted him. He could not even use his divine powers. Pu! 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 Blood flowed. Scarlet blood flowed out of the dragon descendant's 7 orifices. Demonic energy surged as the dragon descendant junior transformed into a dragon man. He had a sinister face and almost all the bones in his body were broken. He was truly miserable. Ao Chongqing! Stop! Stop immediately! The other 5 dragon descendants of the Four Seas Dragon Palace were shocked. When they saw Ao Changqing's miserable state, they revealed extremely furious expressions. Junior brother! Zhang Feijuan was stunned, her beautiful eyes filled with shock. Dragon descendants of the Four Seas Dragon Palace. Qi Ming's gaze was indifferent. You're quite bold. Instead of staying in the eastern region properly, you dare to come to the southern region and behave atrociously. You even dare to attack my senior sister. Are you courting death? Kid. The square-faced dragon descendant with a head of green hair shouted, quickly let go of Ao Chongqing. Otherwise, this date next year will be your death anniversary. It seems that you don't know your situation at all. Qi Ming shook his head. Die. Phew. Qi Ming's dharmic powers surged as a huge force erupted. The thick giant arm evolved from the size adjustment technique forcefully crushed all the bones in Ao Changqing's body. Blood splattered. Save me. Ao Changqing's eyes widened, and he was almost at his last breath. Ah! Formation! The square-faced dragon descendant with a head of green hair roared and soared into the sky. Green light flashed around his body and he transformed into the Green Dragon Man. His body was surrounded by the Green Dragon Dharma idol. 4C's True Dragon Formation. Attack! Roar! 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 The other 4 dragon descendant juniors looked at each other. Their eyes were also filled with killing intent and anger. They roared at the same time and followed closely behind, rushing into the sky. Dragon roars sounded. There were all kinds of colors. The 5 dragon descendant juniors formed an array formation and fused their powers into one. Then, they combined with the 4C's True Dragon Formation and transformed into a 5-clawed green dragon. The sight was truly lifelike. It was 300 meters long. From above, light flickered around it, shining brightly. It was extremely gorgeous. There was also a mighty dragon aura. As expected of the dragon descendants of the 4C's Dragon Palace. The legacy disciple of the Spring-Autumn Sect looked over and sighed, their dragon bloodline is connected. Coupled with a special array formation, after combined, this strength is extremely powerful. Junior brother, be careful! Zhang Feijuan shouted. Damn it! Chen Fengling looked over with an angry expression. Ha ha ha! The legacy disciple of the Spring-Autumn Sect, whose cultivation level had reached the late-stage nascent soul realm, laughed loudly and said, I didn't expect it either just now. I was indeed shocked. This fellow who suddenly appeared is so powerful. He actually forcefully killed a dragon descendant of the 4C's Dragon Palace. However, this way. You have already completely angered the dragon descendants of the 4C's Dragon Palace. Now, even if you hand it over, they will not let you off. Attack! Boom! Chen Fengling held the divine spirit Vajra and used spells. The golden light around his body flickered as he attacked his opponent time and time again. I'll kill you first, followed by the worms of the 4C's Dragon Palace. Chen Fengling shouted. Arrogant! The legacy disciple of the Spring-Autumn Sect, who had reached the late-stage nascent soul realm, snorted coldly. The Spring-Autumn Sect is divided into 4 according to the seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. In each season, there are 6 palaces per solar term. 4 seasons, 24 palaces. I, Yang Huizi, am the eldest senior brother of the winter season's minor snow palace. Be it strength or cultivation, I'm the number 1 in the winter season's minor snow palace. Do you think you can kill me? It'll make more sense if I kill you. Chen Fengling and Yang Huizi's battle became even more intense. The battle situation here also attracted the attention of many parties. First, in the surroundings, many legacy descendants of the factions sensed the commotion here, but they did not show themselves. Instead, they hid and quietly watched the battle. Apart from that, the elders of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect, the Spring-Autumn Sect, and the 4C's Dragon Palace were also paying attention to the situation here. It was not only the legacy disciples of the 12 peaks of the Heaven Enlightenment Sect who had the divine power spell technique on the legacy tokens, the Spring-Autumn Sect and the 4C's Dragon Palace also had similar methods. They could also observe the movements and combat situation of the younger legacy disciples. True Dragon. Qi Ming looked at the true dragon array formed by the 5 dragon descendants and his expression was a little disdainful. You can even call this a true dragon? Ridiculous. Truly laughable. In my opinion. It's just a slightly larger mud fish. Qi Ming casually threw away the crushed Ao Chongqing and sneered. Arrogant. Die. Boom. The voices of the 5 dragon descendants sounded from the 300-meter-long azure dragon in front of him. The 5 of them combined their strength and attacked Qi Ming. A huge dragon claw stretched out and grabbed Qi Ming. Come on. Qi Ming did not have the slightest fear. He looked straight at them and his fighting spirit was high. He shouted loudly, I'll use you to test the true power of this mystic technique. Size adjustment. Buzz. Buzz. Qi Ming circulated his dharmic powers, and the connate purity Great Dao golden core in his body released vast dharmic powers. The Great Dao true intent circulated continuously as he used the divine power of size adjustment. His body swelled up with the wind. In the blink of an eye, he had already transformed into a 500-meter tall giant. Moreover, even his clothes became larger. He was like a giant. What? What spell is this? This. Dharma idol. No. No. Immediately, everyone's eyes widened as they looked at Qi Ming's 500-meter tall body and fell into shock. They were incomparably surprised and cried out repeatedly. Boom. There was a loud sound. Qi Ming forced back the 300-meter-long green dragon with a punch. You. The 5 dragon descendants were extremely shocked. This was only the beginning. Subduing dragons and tigers. Buzz. Buzz. Qi Ming's entire body shook as he added another mystic technique. One of the heavenly constellation 36 techniques, subduing dragons and tigers. It was able to augment the user and defeat large demon beasts. It was a method to capture demon beasts and contained a divine power that could produce immense strength. It represented supreme dharmic powers. When cultivated to perfection, it could hold up the heavens. At this moment, Qi Ming's combat strength rose explosively, and the terrifying pressure pressed down on everyone present to the point of being unable to breathe. Radiance flickered as his might suppressed the entire scene. This. The 5 dragon descendants finally felt suffocated at this moment. The shadow of death enveloped their bodies, making them tremble. Attack! Qi Ming rushed forward and reached out to grab the green dragon's neck. He released the power to subdue dragons and tigers, directly imprisoning all the divine powers and spells of the 5 dragon descendants. No spells could be used. It could only fight Qi Ming in close combat with the green dragon body. How could they possibly defeat Qi Ming, who had the strength to subdue dragons and tigers? During the close combat battle, they were forcefully torn into several pieces by Qi Ming. Boom! Ah! Screams sounded. The green dragon body exploded, turning into light that filled the sky. Pu! 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 The 5 dragon descendant juniors let out miserable screams as they spat out blood. All over their bodies, their muscles and bones broke inch by inch, and blood seeped out of their 7 apertures. What? Ao Woolen and the others were actually beaten to such a state. Who on earth is this person? When did such a legacy disciple appear in the Heaven Enlightenment sect? Ao Woolen and the others could not win even after joining forces to form the 4 Seas True Dragon formation. Moreover, they were crushed. Over at the 4 Seas Dragon Palace, when the Dragon King elders saw this situation, shock appeared on their faces. They did not expect that Ao Woolen and the others would be defeated, and even lose so badly. He's that legacy disciple of the Heaven Enlightenment sect's Green Cloud Peak. Qi Ming. Is it the one who cultivated the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture? In the battle just now, Qi Ming did not use the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture. How terrifying! You also ignored the most important point. In the battle just now, Qi Ming's cultivation and dharmic powers were at the late-stage core formation realm. In other words, Qi Ming killed a mid-stage nascent soul realm dragon descendant junior with a late-stage core formation realm cultivation. Moreover, he fought 5 people alone. This combat strength is simply terrifying. The elders of the Spring-Autumn sect took a deep breath and looked at the situation in the projection. Their eyes were filled with shock, and their shocked hearts were unable to calm down for a long time. Ha ha ha! Feng Zimo laughed repeatedly. He was in an extremely carefree mood, as expected of my disciple. What dragon descendant junior? They're just like mud fish. Well done. Qi Ming. Qi Ming. In the Heaven Enlightenment sect, the elders who were watching the battle in the 12 floating palaces were also cheering for Qi Ming. Although Qi Ming could not hear it, it also expressed the excitement of the Heaven Enlightenment sect elders at this moment. Moreover, even the peak masters and elders who had some objections to Qi Ming previously let go of their grudges. Qi Ming's strength and talent had already convinced them. Green Lotus Sword Dao. Buzz. Qi Ming waved his right hand, and a green sword lotus rose from his palm. The lotus was at the 12th level, and every petal represented a type of sword Dao. Sword threads gradually spread out like hair. In an instant, it enveloped Ao Wuling and the other 5 dragon descendant juniors. Yu. Ao Wuling and the others widened their eyes and glared at Qi Ming. They forcefully mobilized the power in their bodies and roared angrily. They fought desperately and charged at Qi Ming. Attack! Battle cries filled the sky. They were only struggling. Qi Ming's sword Dao Green Lotus slashed apart the dragon's might and tore apart the demonic energy. Countless sword threads were like a misty drizzle as they endlessly obliterated Ao Wuling and the other 5 dragon descendants, turning them into 5 corpses. Run! Yang Huizi was shocked. He had already sensed that something was amiss when Ao Wuling and the other 5 dragon descendant juniors were defeated. Qi Ming's strength was too abnormal, too heaven-defying. Without any hesitation, after forcing Chen Fengling back with a full-powered strike, he used the 5 elements escape technique. His body transformed into a fast streak of light as he fled from this place, and the other 4 legacy disciples of the Spring-Autumn sect followed closely behind. Chapter 110, Breath of Frozen End. 5 elements escape technique. Qi Ming sneered faintly, "You dare to use this 5 elements escape technique in front of me? Ridiculous." Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Ming first removed the mystic technique divine powers of the size adjustment and subduing dragons and tigers. His body instantly returned to normal. Then, he waved his hands and used the 5 elements escape. One of the heavenly constellation 36 techniques, 5 elements escape. This mystic technique was not as simple as an escape technique. It recorded the 5 elements immortal technique and contained various 5 elements escape techniques that controlled the power of the 5 elements. In front of the 5 elements escape, all the spells and escape techniques related to the 5 elements could be suppressed. Buzz. After Qi Ming used the 5 elements escape, the power of the 5 elements was under his control. The power of the 5 elements gathered in his hand. Freeze! Qi Ming shouted. Ah! The next moment, a miserable cry sounded. The escape techniques of Yang Huizi and the others all failed. The 5 elements' power they had gathered dissipated and was no longer under their control. The 5 elements escape technique naturally lost its effect. They directly fell from the sky. Yu. Yang Huizi and the others were shocked. What happened just now? Why did our escape technique suddenly fail? What method did you use just now? Swish! Qi Ming flew over. Since you've already attacked us, you're the enemy. Qi Ming looked down at them. Since you're enemies, we have to kill you all. We won't leave any future trouble. Want to use the 5-element escape technique to escape from my eyes? Dream on. Overturning the seas. Buzz. Qi Ming waved his hands and used the mystic technique of the heavenly constellation 36 techniques again. This divine power mystic technique's effect was just like its name. It could control rivers, lakes, and seas, creating monstrous waves. It was powerful. Rise. Rumble. The ground shook. Not far away, Qiming controlled the torrential river of the Yinglong River. In an instant, it raised endless waves that covered the sky. Crash! The surging river was like a heavenly curtain, completely sealing all directions of Yang Huizi and the others. No. What kind of power is this? Spare me! Spare me! Fear. Boundless fear. At this moment, facing such a huge wall, Yang Huizi and the others were comparable to the monstrous tsunami that could drown cities. It contained the power of nature. It was difficult to resist. Under such circumstances, their legs turned weak, and they almost lost the courage to continue fighting. Too strong, too strong. Zhang Feijuan was dumbfounded. She stared at the scene in front of her and was in absolute shock, manipulating the rivers and raising endless waves. Junior brother's strength is simply unfathomable. He can use all kinds of methods. Chen Fengling took a deep breath, his eyes filled with deep reverence. As expected, a person cannot gain great reputation without true abilities. Qiming's strength is indeed the same as his reputation in the Heaven Enlightenment Sect. Such unfathomable power. I originally wanted to fight Qiming and see who was stronger. Is the Chaos Green Lotus Sword scripture as powerful as the rumors say? Now Chen Fengling let out a shaky breath and smiled bitterly. I no longer have such thoughts. I'm not Qiming's match at all. Unless I break through to the leaving aperture realm, I can't fight him. Ah! A miserable cry sounded. Qiming controlled the monstrous wave to sweep over. Without any hesitation, it was impossible for him to show mercy. He attacked with a killer move that destroyed vitality. The two early-stage nascent soul realm legacy disciples of the Spring-Autumn sect used various methods, but under the impact of such a terrifying wave, all the spells were shattered and could not be reached. Then, the monstrous wave swept the two of them into it. A powerful tearing force acted on their bodies and forcefully tore them apart. No! No! Rumble! Continuous explosions sounded. The two legacy disciples at the mid-stage nascent soul realm lasted for a long time. They cooperated with Yang Huizi to resist the monstrous waves and used various methods and spells. Junior brothers, help me! At this moment, Yang Huizi roared as his Dao nascent soul appeared. A freezing chill appeared around him, as if winter had arrived. Yes! The two mid-stage nascent soul realm legacy disciples replied in unison. I definitely won't lose. Yang Huizi roared at the sky, letting out a roar that shook the surroundings. He roared angrily, I, Yang Huizi, am the eldest senior brother of the Spring-Autumn Sect's winter season's minor snow palace. I definitely won't lose. Buzz. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, seals appeared. In the blink of an eye, above Yang Hui's head, an incomparably huge array formation formed. The diameter of the array formation reached 100 meters and enveloped the surroundings. Oh! Qiming looked at Yang Huizi and felt the obvious chill around him, making him feel cold. He was a little interested. What else can you do? Heaven and Earth Deep Winter 9 Absolute Scripture. Buzz. First, Yang Huizi circulated the cultivation technique he cultivated to the limit. Vast dharmic powers surged out of his body and transformed into endless talisman spells to form a huge array. At the same time, his two junior brothers helped from the side. Annihilation Array, Breath of Frozen End. Yang Huizi pressed his palms together and roared again. His Dao nascent soul erupted and dharmic powers were injected. The Dharma array was completely released, and a huge dragon head appeared in the center. Frozen End. Legend had it that this was one of the 4 divine dragons. A divine dragon nurtured by the snow and ice of the Kunlun immortal mountain that contained the power of chaos. The Frozen End controlled the great river, and it also had the title of River Count. Of course, these were only legends. At this moment, Yang Huizi used it and summoned a Frozen End dragon head. He then released the dragon breath that froze heaven and earth. Even the huge wave that Qi Ming controlled was forcefully frozen. The scene was extremely magnificent. The huge wave was hundreds of meters tall and covered the sky. In this huge wave, not only were there all kinds of fish, prawns, and other creatures in the water, but there were also demon beasts in the water. At this moment, they were all frozen. An ice mountain hundreds of meters tall appeared. It was like the Ice Age. In the center, Yang Huizi sat cross-legged. His two junior brothers' faces were pale. They had exhausted a lot of dharmic powers. Ha ha ha! Yang Huizi looked at the scene in front of him. He used the frozen end's breath to freeze the monstrous waves. His expression was excited and agitated. He laughed loudly and roared, "I succeeded, I succeeded. Not bad." Qi Ming nodded and looked at Yang Huizi in praise, as expected of a legacy disciple of the Spring-Autumn Sect. Moreover, you're the eldest senior brother of the winter season's minor snow palace. Your strength is indeed not bad. You can freeze my power. You lost. Yang Huizi looked up at Qi Ming. I won. I've already broken your spell. I lost. Qi Ming shook his head and said indifferently, I'm afraid you're wrong. You only blocked this divine power spell of mine. You want to defeat me? Cultivate for another 1,000 years. No. You don't have a chance anymore. 5 Lightning Control. Crack. Crack. As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Ming raised his right hand. The dharmic powers in his body fused with his organs as he mobilized the power of the lightning Dao in the world. In his palm, the power of 5 lightning gathered. Lightning appeared as crackling sounds could be heard. Electric arcs flickered. This was one of the heavenly constellation 36 techniques, 5 lightning control. The 5 lightning referred to metal lightning, wood lightning, water lightning, fire lightning, and earth lightning. When the 5 lightning combined, it could evolve the divine firmament heavenly lightning. Subduing demons and devils, such heavenly might was simply alarming. At this moment, in Qi Ming's palm, lightning spread out from his 5 fingers and gathered in his palm. The power of 5 lightning evolved in his palm. Die. Crack. Qi Ming pressed down with his right hand and locked onto Yang Huizi. In an instant, it was as if the sky changed. Lightning flashed as if a storm had descended. Rumble. Lightning tore through the sky. All of them exploded on Yang Huizi. Ah! Yang Huizi screamed. The various Dharma treasures on his body were unable to withstand the power of the 5 lightning bolts. The defensive method on his body was as weak as tofu and could not resist. In an instant, Yang Huizi was killed by the 5 lightning bolts. From head to toe, he turned into pitch-black charcoal. There was no chance of survival. His essence soul had also been destroyed. This was called 5-blow thunderstruck. He was killed in one move. Senior brother! Senior brother Yang! The other 2 legacy disciples shouted in grief and fear. 5-blow thunderstruck! Boom! Boom! Qi Ming waved his hand, and 2 more 5 lightning bolts landed in his palm, directly hitting the other 2 legacy disciples of the Spring-Autumn Sect. Even Yang Huizi could not withstand the 5 lightning control, much less the 2 of them. Under the 5-blow thunderstruck, they were all reduced to ashes. All of them died. Swish! Swish! Then, Qi Ming waved his right hand, and the Dharma treasures and storage bags on their bodies flew over from the corpses and landed in Qi Ming's hand with a sweep of his spirit energy. They were indeed worthy of being legacy descendants. Their value was very high. Crack! Crack! With Yang Huizi's death, the frozen wave quickly collapsed, and the huge ice mountain disappeared. Go back! Buzz! Qi Ming waved his left hand, and the monstrous wave returned to the Yinglong River. Junior brother! After a moment, Zhang Feijuan had already returned to her senses. She came in front of Qi Ming and bowed, if not for you, we would probably be in danger. Thank you for saving my life, Senior Brother Qi. The other 3 legacy disciples cupped their hands and bowed to Qi Ming. Cough cough. Chen Fengling came over and coughed lightly. He looked at Qi Ming with some reverence and bowed, Junior Brother Qi, although I entered the sect earlier than you, from the battle just now, I didn't sit well. In terms of strength, I'm far from your match. If not for your appearance this time, the 5 of us would probably have died in the hands of Yang Hui and the others. Even the ancient treasure and inheritance that we obtained from the Red Flood Dragon Hall with great difficulty would have been snatched away. Red Flood Dragon Hall. Qi Ming was interested. What ancient treasure and inheritance is it? Can I take a look? No problem at all. Chen Fengling nodded.